food or medicine or clean, safe water to drink.
25,000 children every day.
They die because they're young and vulnerable.
They do not have to die, but they do.
They die because through no fault of their own, they are poor.
They die because they suffer in the shadows, their pain unseen by the rest of the world.
They do not have to die, but they do. 25,000 children.
25,000 children.
25,000 children every day.
My name is Lucy Liu, and I believe.
My name is Whoopi Goldberg, and I believe.
My name is Mia Farrow, and I believe.
My name is Lawrence Fishburne, and I believe that number should be 0. Believe in 0.
UNICEF invites you to join the effort. Visit IBelieveInZero.org.
What have you done for your marriage today? For every couple, it's a little different.
Well, I would like to say a hug and a kiss, but it was kind of hectic for us this morning.
We're going to the museums as a family.
I gave her a call and say thinking of her and the kids.
What have I done for my marriage today?
Yeah, I sent my husband a love email.
I think I've avoided all controversial things today.
Is that your answer?
That's pretty much it, yes.
While we're spending the day together, so that's good.
She works night and Dwight working during the day, so spending the day together is actually pretty big.
Yeah.
I suppose I didn't yell at him for anything at all. Anything.
I made my wife laugh. That is a big plus for a marriage. Keep her laughing.
What have you done for your marriage today? Small changes can make a world of difference. Get started at foryourmarriage.org. A message from the Catholic Communication Campaign.
Did you know that cancer is the second leading cause of death in the United States? Did you also know that cancer affects people of all races, ages, and backgrounds in unique and different ways? Unfortunately, not everyone knows their cancer risk, leading to many unnecessary deaths every year. But you can do something. By taking a more active role in your own health, you can better understand how cancer may affect you. Benita Hayes, a breast cancer survivor, is doing just that.
Ask the questions. You know, it's your body, it's you. Make sure you ask the questions and get an understanding. Don't give up. I equate it to being a pit bull. Dig in there because it is your health. Just, don't give up on that.
Make healthy lifestyle choices. Educate yourself. It's your best defense. Cancers detected early are easier to treat. For more cancer answers, go.
The views and opinions of the guest and host you hear on 1010 WOLB
are not necessarily those of the staff and management of Radio 1, its sponsors, or advertisers.
It's done unto you as you believe. It's done unto you as you believe. I'm gonna get there, yes, somehow. Push my way through the crowd. I'm gonna grab you by the hand to a place we will stand. Stand proud, no fear. It's clear, I believe in you. I believe in me. Oh yeah, I believe that we can make this dream a reality. Yeah, yeah. Now's the time to be. Now's the time for miracles. Oh, it's in my heart so deep. 'Cause I believe.
I believe in you. I believe in me.
Amen.
I believe that we can make our dreams a reality. Welcome to each and every one of you to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People on WOLB 1010 Baltimore. I tell you what, information is power, and we got a show lined up for you today, commemorating probably one of the greatest Americans that has ever lived.
Amen.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We are so excited and can't get ready, so I'm going to keep it moving. Please welcome my co-host and just one of my favorite people, one of my, he feeds my soul because he's been on the battlefield a long time. In fact, he's sitting here with a badge on. Move your arm from the March in Washington, August 28th, 1963. He's got his badge on because he was there. Please welcome Mr. Leo Burrows, Jr.
Well, praise God, from whom all blessings flow, and praise the Lord, and pass the ammunition for justice, decency, and fair play.
Absolutely, and that's what we're fitting to do up in here today, is fitting to pass the ammunition. Next, please welcome a young man that I've been admiring for years, and he was brought to my attention from his writing. And believe it or not, it was on Facebook. I always noticed this man would have these just so well written and so knowledgeable.
Genius.
And come to find out, not only is he a genius, but he is a man after God's own heart, as we all are in this room. Please welcome Mr. James C. Morant. I don't know, maybe I'll pull that volume down here. Why am I getting the feedback? Mr. Morant.
Good morning, Baltimore, and thank you very much for the compliment, Patrick. You called me a young man. I appreciate it.
Well, I saw that picture of you today on Facebook. You look like Fred Hammond when you was a younger man. It was so funny when you said, do I look like Fred Hammond? I just busted out laughing. Yes, you do. Or yes, you did.
Yes,
anyway, Fred, maybe you think Fred's going to look like you the older he gets, possibly. And a young man that is so talented in so many ways, and technically, socio-economically, heart for the people. Please welcome back our co-host who hasn't been to see. We got him a job here. He got a job here at Radio 1, and they didn't took him from us, but he's back with us today. Please welcome Mr. Jason Rodriguez back to the fold.
Peace and blessings, family. Just want to remind everyone there are so many ways that you can watch this great program every Monday here on WOLB. You can watch us on TuneIn. You can go to WOLBbaltimore.com. You can also download the WOLB app. And you could see everyone in living color if you use the hashtag Meet the People, all one word. We're on Periscope. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. Everyone in studio, including Patrick Henderson in all of his wonderful glory this morning.
Well, God is good. What a day to be alive. It's cold as whiskers out there. But I tell you what, when I got up out that bed and I saw wasn't no rain, wasn't going to be no ice that I couldn't see, I tell you I rejoiced and I'm glad I'm in this day. And I cannot forget the man who has lost his sight, but who has more insight and sight than a lot of people I know. Please welcome Mr. Richard Terry. How are you, Richard? It'll help if I turn on the phone, won't it? How you doing, Richard? Keep sticking my finger in the
there you are.
There I am. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Well, folks, it's time to take a look at the mirror instead of having it look like Alice's looking glass. It's time we examine ourselves, and on a day like today, we examine what has happened and what should happen, and what can we do to make things happen.
Absolutely. We're going to tackle that today in so many ways because it really all boils down to one thing. Do they care or don't they care? And are their actions indicative of who they are and what they believe? Today, this young man, I have known him probably longer than I've known anybody in this room, because when I first moved here and I had a recording studio, a friend of mine, John Bishop, y'all call him the Mogul, introduced me to this young man, and this beautiful voice and one of the greatest songs. A friend of mine. What you doing, Jason? Jason up here sticking his finger in the wrong hole. What's going on, Jason? What you doing? We can't hear. Are we good now?
There's some weird feedback. I can hear it.
Okay.
It sounds really trebly.
He's smiling at you, the engineer. Okay, I think he wants to talk to you. Oh, it's on the other side. Okay, and Marvin is now, he works for the city in youth opportunities, but he has just become the pastor of a church here. And he's always loved the Lord. I tell you, he's always a little holy boy, I used to call him. And sure enough, now here he is. He's the pastor. Please welcome Marvin McKinstry. Pastor Marvin McKinstry. How are you?
I'm doing great this morning. It's an honor and privilege to be here and to be in the room with such great wisdom. I'm humbled today and excited to be a part of this particular conversation.
Well, you are welcomed here at any time. I tell you, people say they can't find jobs. If you can't
pass a drug test, you probably can't find one. But that don't mean the jobs are not there, because Marvin daily posts opportunities, job opportunities for everybody, not just the young people. So you are welcomed here, sir. And you've done some things that we're going to talk about a little later. He's written a song called Be More. I was hoping Doc was going to be here because that's his theme right now. That's his title, Be More. So we're going to play some of his music, but we're going to get on with the show. As many of you know, as we all should know, today is Dr. King's celebration. His birthday was this past Tuesday. He was born January 15th, 1929. 20 years exact to the date before my birthday. Took me a long time before I made the connection. I can't believe that I didn't make that connection in my youth days.
But you made it.
But I made it, I made it. Now I understand me a lot better. Now that I know what I have in common with this great man. James is going to give us a bit of a bio on Dr. King. James, what do you have there? Speak.
All right, I'll run through this very quickly. Graduate of Morehouse College in 1948. He had a degree in sociology. He went to Crozer Theological Seminary in 1951 and received his doctorate from Boston University in 1955. He was a PhD by the age of 26. He was also a working pastor, first at the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama, where he successfully led the bus boycott, which resulted in ending segregation in transportation. And then co-pastor at the famous Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta. He was a community organizer, so he was responsible for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. This man held 18 honorary degrees, national and international, from various colleges, including Yale University, Amsterdam Free University. He received the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964 at the age of 35, and he gave all of his winnings to civil rights organizations. That was $54,000 at the time. He still had time to travel. He traveled 6 million miles, gave over 2,500 speeches. He got arrested 20 times, and he was assaulted 4 times. He married Coretta Scott, Coretta Scott King was the speaker at my graduation from Morgan State University, so I'll never forget that. And the other thing is that he was under constant surveillance by the FBI from our own government. He was a relative enemy of the state.
According to the FBI.
According to the FBI. So the world has changed since then. And we are now in a completely different place, which doesn't fulfill the promise that Martin Luther King had, because his view was that we had moved along, we had made progress, we had voted properly, so that we had defeated the forces of fascism and authoritarianism. And so he was very optimistic, as many of us were and still are. So we find ourselves in a very peculiar place on this day. I looked today on the White House schedule to find out what our president was doing in honor of this American hero. And the note that I got back is that there are no scheduled events for the president today.
Did you expect anything less?
Well, I say what Maya Angelou would say, which is when someone shows you who they are believe them.
The first time.
The first time.
The first time.
The first time.
So I do believe he has television shows to watch. So I'm sure that takes precedence.
Yeah, especially after yesterday, after Giuliani came and told that he'd been talking to Cohen for much of 2016 and stuff. He's in trouble. But I want to talk about Dr. King just a little bit more. He became the pastor of his father's church, Ebenezer. His mother was killed in that church.
In that church at the organ.
At the organ. His name was not Martin.
Michael.
His name was Michael.
Yes.
He was still an angel, according to his father's blessing when he gave him his name.
Yes.
But his father changed his name and then made him a junior. Do we know what brought about that? Did his father see something in him, or did his father realize Martin? For a lot of people don't know, Martin Luther was really is the reason for the Protestant Church, the Catholics, all these denominations that we have now, because he went against the Catholic Church. And Martin Luther was considered a great man because he broke the stronghold that the Catholic Church had on the world. Do we know why his father might have decided to take that name and make his son a junior?
I don't know specifically. I have not read that, but what I do know about Martin Luther is that he was a reformer.
Yes.
And so if you take the work that Martin Luther King Jr. did, it was very much in the area of reforming our thoughts, reforming our society in many different ways. So perhaps that is the reason why the name change.
The name change. Well, that's an interesting. Gentlemen, I really want to use today to talk with the people in the city. If you're listening in, we would love to hear your commentary. We want to hear us talk about. We know what the problems are. Can we call in, and talk about what we think the solutions might be? Let us come together and let us form some thoughts about our next move. As we know, the city, Richard brought up the fact that the mayor, we just don't know anymore. We had such high hopes for her, and I'm still not trying to give up on the mayor. I still want to believe that there is some hope in her doing the right things by the people against great disappointments in so many ways. We found out over the weekend that the school board or the school system has been is owed over $300 million since 2008. Which it would explain why the air conditioning and the heaters are not working and all these things. They've just been denying it because from the recession in 2008, they never got back on the path that they were supposed to have been on. But mind you, it was already in deficits then. But then they say that their school board needs auditing and they can't find this money, and this money keeps disappearing. So it seems like we're a catch-22. We damned if we do and we damned if we don't, and they don't give a damn what we do. That's seemingly the way that it is. So let us talk about this a little bit more. What happened in the United States between 1964 and 2019 is the question. Talking about Dr. King and what happened here in America. What are your remnants? Or what is the word I want to use? Reminiscences? Commemorations or remembrances of it. 410-481-1010.
Well, Pat,
Yeah, hold on for a minute. 410-481-1010. Let's light the lines up. We want to know what you were doing. We want to know what was the life-changing event that made you realize that not only were we in trouble, but it didn't look like the trouble was going to change. Was there a ray of hope? Was there something that was said? Was there something that was done to give you hope and kept you believing that someday we might be free? Go ahead, Richard. Okay,
well, let's look at Baltimore in general and life in particular. I came up in the tail end of all of this. I grew up in the 60s, the late 60s. 64, I was 12 years old. Here in the city of Baltimore, I didn't realize how prejudiced Baltimore really was. I couldn't pay attention to it, and my parents never really even told me about it. Let's look at the fact that in one time there were 4 department stores downtown that African Americans could not go in.
That's right.
You had Holschel's, you had Hecht's, you had Stewart's, and I forget the Holschel's, Hecht's, and Hutler's. Those were the 4 main ones right down on Baltimore and Lexington Street.
Yes, sir.
And I really didn't pay attention to that. We could go to Breger Gutman's, which was right down the street. We could sit at the counter at the Woolworths, which was right across the street from that. But outside of that, you couldn't. Until I took, in '68, a trip to Johnson City, Tennessee. And that's when, for the first time, I ran into segregation head on. We caught the bus. My grandmother and I caught the bus down there, and we stopped off in Atlanta, which was like a culture shock of monumental proportions. And it was then that I ran into the separate water fountains, separate restrooms, separate eating accommodations, and the whole 9 yards. And my grandmother told me, she said, look, what we have here is not what we have back up in Baltimore. And my parents came from Western Pennsylvania. Even Western Pennsylvania was not the same. Let's now shoot ahead 50 years from that. Have things changed? I was talking to a friend of mine who said they would rather look at things half full. Do we have the right to vote? Yes, we do, even though sometimes it's being slowly eroded and taken away. Do we have the right to work many jobs? Yes. Do we have the right to an equal education, according to Brown? I don't think so.
Where you live, keep going.
Or where you live. Justice, let's look at the criminal justice system. It's still the same.
Yes.
It's almost like Nina Simone's song, Southern Trees Bear Strange Fruit. We don't have that strange fruit on the trees anymore, but there's still the same system exists.
Yes, but do you believe that they just introduced an anti-lynching law in 2018?
Yes, I do.
Do you they just it was legal? Is that the word for them to lynch people? Get out of here. Don't make me cuss this morning. I'm trying to stay saved today.
I think we need to say, Patrick said that, and 1964 was a pivotal year because Martin Luther King, I read 64. But it also gave a glimpse in terms of what he thought we had achieved and his very, very broad optimism about U.S. society. So I think for me and this team here, that's why we say 1964.
Well, Leo, go right ahead. Come right here.
In April of 1964 was the first and only time that I had a chance to shake Dr. King's hand and to speak with him and commend him for the I Have a Dream speech that he delivered, and I was present at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. in 1963. And, of course, Stokely Carmichael was present at the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee Regional Conference at the Prince Hall Masonic Temple on Utah Place here. So they were all there, and I must tell you that I was elated to meet him, but I did not forget, and nor did he, that the Civil War is an ongoing concern for those who are Confederates and those who continue to be Confederates and those who continue to resist and advocate states' rights in our nation. And, of course, less than 0.1% of the people who control the economy of this world, many of them reside in the United States, the multi-billionaires of which Donald Trump allegedly says that he's one of them. So what I'm looking at is the continued move toward fascism. They never left it, and now we're back to it, and we got a fascist. We've got a fascist in the White House, in my estimation, when we talk about Martin Luther King Jr. I'm sorry, when we talk about Donald the actor Trump, we're talking about a fascist and a man who, by his very actions at this juncture, are promoting slavery. Anytime you have people working and you demand that they work for free, that's slavery. Moreover, it's violence because you're you're inflicting pain and suffering and violence upon people. So, again, we're looking at Donald the Actor Trump, and he is a symptom of a larger problem. And I say the billionaires who control our economy are not only Republicans, but they're Democrats.
Yes.
And so the Democratic Party is going to have to take a tougher stance than it's taking. If it requires massive civil disobedience to change the way things are, and we have to involve millions of people, not just 800,000 workers who are laid off, but if we have to bring this country to a halt on its highways and bridges and airports, then so be it. But we're all in this together. We are our brother's keeper, whether we want to be or not, and we've got to push that envelope and resist dictatorship and bullies.
We're going to go to the phones right quick. Charles, amen to what Leo just said. Amen, amen. 3-4, 7-4, 12-4, whatever four y'all want to call it. Yeah, you can. He's absolutely right. Gene or John, do you have a question or comment? Welcome.
It's Gene, and I'm 100% in agreement with what Leo has said. But I want to be specific. Give specific content.
Okay.
Boyd Rutherford. Okay, he's a Republican, but he's the heir apparent to Larry Hogan. Right?
So he thinks.
But right now he wants to be. So, and then the Republican Brian Frost and Mike Miller. Okay, so they're on the same side. And so what I mean by that is they all are against Fordyce versus Mississippi, right? And they've said it.
That's the HBCUs for those of you that don't know. He's talking about historically black schools.
That was a case where Mississippi duplicated literally teachers' colleges. They had a black teachers' college, so they created a white teachers' college. And so what that meant is that they were in violation of Brown versus the Board of Education. It was de jure segregation. So they're segregationalists. There's no way of getting around it. Because if you are in favor of reversing Fordyce, you are segregationalist.
That's right.
And there's no way other way of explaining it.
Wait a minute, you know what, Gene? Let me say something to you. You're absolutely right. The reason I said Boyd Rutherford thinks he's the heir apparent. The governor just put forth his first administration. It's not the board. What do you call it when his cabinet?
His cabinet.
Yes.
There is not one black face, not one anywhere.
Yeah, okay. So the point is that we are. I guess we are. I hope we are in agreement. But it's not so much what they're going to do. Well, my thing is, what the hell are we going to do? Who do we have that can run against the? He's possibly going to put his head in the ring to be the vice president, etc. But again, they are segregated. I'm sorry. They are. I'm sorry, but you know what I mean. They're racist, white supremacists.
Well, Gene,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Gene, do we and everybody here? Do we love African people? Do we love our heritage and culture? Do we understand how important that is in terms of the?
I don't think so, Leo.
If we don't,
not collectively,
if we cannot retain a sense of history, understanding that we're standing on the shoulders of those who've gone before, if our desire, and I'm stereotyping some of us, but if our desire is to gain white acceptance, and that's all it is, I just want to be accepted by white folks, and we do not retain an unabiding love and have the courage of our convictions to retain our heritage and culture as we aspire to be a united people and in a country that is united. If we lose that basis, how can we go forward?
We don't seem to have found it. But
we have to agree on that one point, Leo, and we seem not to be capable of doing that. And it's a real simple point that we have to do that first. Everyone who calls and say that we need to unite, we need to be more black, or however you want to say it, but that should be the goal. But for some reason we just can't come to that agreement.
Why is it that we are the only people that seem to don't understand? Look at the Jews. They look at their commonality of their people and their culture and their God that they claim that they've been made the chosen people of.
Because Malcolm X said that we are the only group that are trying to integrate with other groups. No other groups are trying to integrate with us. When we
they just come and steal all our stuff.
I know, but I can say integration is wrong. People will call in and disagree and say that gentrification, integration is the answer. But truthfully, it's separation, which is the basis of what we're talking about.
Which is what they do.
Because, right, every other group separates from us. We're the only group that tries to integrate with them. And I didn't make that up. Malcolm X said that, years ago.
Thank you, Gene. I appreciate that.
Can I add something real quick? Martin Luther King's words. His words. There is a sort of poverty of the spirit which stands in glaring contrast to our scientific and technological abundance. The richer we have become materially, the poorer we have become morally and spiritually.
Amen.
We have learned to fly the air like birds and swim the sea like fish, but we have not learned the simple art of living together like brothers.
Amen, Marvin.
That was profound.
That was very profound.
My perspective on conversations like these may seem a little jaded because, I grew up in Lexington Terrace Housing Project, and right now to this day, my church sits 2 blocks away from where I grew up, and I work in Sandtown, Winchester for the last 7 years. So I'm in the same community where I grew up 6 days a week doing some sort of ministry or work. And the interesting thing to me is how we have those conversations and yet we lack a real dialogue around how classism exists in our own race. While we see the so-called affluent black people, educated black people, successful black people fighting for their precious HBCUs, we've never seen them take up the fight for inner city education. And as long as those kinds of dynamics exist, you're going to always have a group of people who feel completely separated from black success. Black people, because so-called successful black people are not taking up the fight and being on the front lines of the fight for those who are in the communities that still resemble third world countries.
Right on.
In Gilmore Homes, McCullough Homes, Pennsylvania Avenue, those kinds of places, Lexington Poe, where I'm at all the time. I see it all the time. We see people who, like I said, they take the charge full on for their alma mater. But the state of education in poor black communities in Baltimore, the schools and the systems and all of that sort of thing, and many of them are educators. They take up the fight when it's time to fight for their rights, benefits, and compensation as educators. But for the general reality that our school system is segregated with the elite 5, your city, your poly, all of those schools, and we got those composite scores that take young people from one. Then you can go to this level of high school, that level of high school, instead of demanding that the same quality of education be across the board.
Absolutely.
So I don't want to take up the fight for what's going on between us and white people when we haven't even looked inside our own selves to heal what we need healing.
Marvin, how old are you?
I'm 40.
You're 40, so you're considered a millennial.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are. Don't you touch that dial. You're getting it from the old folks and the young folks this morning. You're listening to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People on WOLB 1010 Baltimore. Good, we'll be right back.
WOLB Baltimore and WERQ FM, HD2, HD3 Baltimore.
We're right back to you. Thank you, God. They didn't have a bunch of commercials today. I don't know if that's good or bad, but we're going to take what we get. Yes, Richard?
May I say this?
Come quickly.
And you just briefly touched on it. This idea of separation between class and sociological differences is been in Baltimore for as long as I've been alive.
It's all over the United States.
It's all over the United States. But if you examine Baltimore carefully enough, you'll see just how bad it is.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. We're going to go to Brother Carlos, who always has an interesting perspective. Brother Carlos, welcome to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People. Do you have a question or comment, sir?
Yes, sir. Good morning to everybody. I hope that I wanted to comment on the article by Mayor Catherine Pugh in the Baltimore Sun, saying that entitled "Baltimore is Making Progress on Crime." But before that, I wanted to give my reflections on what happened between the '64 time in our history and today's present. And I can only put it in the format of Dr. Ben Yackerman, who said that We thought we came to the melting pot, but we came to the boiling pot. and we're still in the boiling pot, and they're sprinkling that rock salt on us. Let me say that also another reflection is that when we talk about the Jews, if you study history, and you even see this in the Bible, that the Jews, or the Ashkenazis, or at least that section who called the Ashkenazis, trace their heritage back to Japhet, the white person, and so that they consider themselves to be white, and they've taken that mantle on. But anyway, I want to get back to the Mayor of Pugh and her particular editorial in the not the Sun, but the Washington Post on last Sunday speaks to the hurt and the disorder within Baltimore, and the families and so forth that have been disrupted by the gun violence, and of course she touches upon the persistent drug trade and the systematic neglect of neighborhoods over too many years. Now, I don't know whether she's tone deaf or she's been tone deaf, but she puts this in her editorial. What she says is that she has developed a plan through the appointment of Michael Henderson out of New Orleans, the new superintendent, and her Violence Reduction Initiative 1, which she says that through the garage sales and so forth, she is going to put money into those neighborhoods that have been so-called poor and denied the benefits. Now,
but hold on for a minute. I'm going to cut you off there. But she mentions nothing about saying crime is dropped when it's 10 below zero. Weather is just a facade. It's just not genuine because there ain't nobody on the street. Ain't nobody trying to come out and hurt nobody. Somebody trying to find somewhere to sleep. Or to
just stay warm, Patrick.
Yeah, just to stay warm. So the crime is dropping because of that, because of the time of year.
Last year we experienced an 11-day
crime-free,
murder-free 11-day period with temperatures just like today.
Yeah, that's
you know, the thing was, you know, there were many people, many groups, and many others, and that wanted to step up to the mic to try and say, hey, it's working. You know, no, God's working. You know, God's the reason for the freeze. You know what I'm saying? The environment is the reason for the freeze.
Thank you, Brother Carlos. I'm going to try to go right ahead. Come on, Marvin.
We can't continue to hide behind things of that nature.
Facades, man. Just quickies. I'm telling you, ain't no time for quickies. The crime is dropped because of that, but the mayor seems to forget. And nobody ever mentions, and I'm going to keep talking about it. Lead poisoning it is so bad in this city that now people that have had it for years, it's in their bone marrow. Now their children are being born with it. We don't realize the power of the deterioration of the brain on a people. This is not normal for black people to kill black people like this. I don't care what nobody say. I'm 70 years old last Tuesday, and I've never seen anything like this before. Even in Texas, with all them damn rednecks in there. And in Chicago, again, red lead paint. Where were the two places they put the lead paint? Baltimore City and PG County. They're trying to kill us. When we realize that, then we will come to our senses and realize this is a planned, slow genocide.
Patrick, there's too many of our people, especially our legislators, have been walking through this city and through parts of the state with their eyes wide shut.
Yep. And I agree with you 100%. All right, well, Charles, I believe we're going to go to you next. Doc, I see you there. Good to see you there. Hold on. Charles, you have a question or comment?
I have a comment. Now, I heard y'all saying something about all the rights that we have gained, but all these rights are sharecropper rights. They're only rights to debt and servitude. You know, we're only propping up the system. They use us to continue their motion. So we haven't got it yet. That we are the problem. We got to come out of her. Stop her from moving. Stop giving her all this energy.
What are we to do in the meantime? How do we do this? I hear what you're saying, what we need to do. How do you suggest that we do that?
The same way you would if you had a personal problem or you had a personal issue with your own business or something you were dealing with in your personal life.
And what would that be, sir? What would that be? What would you do?
Well, what I would do, like I said, I would withdraw from her. Like you say, we're supposed to have networks. I don't see our networks working. I see our networks being scattered. Okay, so we need to fold within ourselves.
Okay, what are you doing? What are you doing about it personally?
Well, why would you ask that question? Because that's a diversion.
No, it's not a diversion. You're a diversion by talking about what we need to do, and you're not doing anything.
I think, and that's one of the things that, because I've been, being a younger person, I've been around when we thought that we were going to battle, fight, and march. In recent times, our way to some significant change, and being a little older than a lot of my contemporaries who are in the social justice community, I recognize and realize that it's a whole lot of systematic and strategic work that's going to need to take place to bring about some real and significant change. I talked about before to people that we need to research the owners of the homes, go back to those that have been locked up and convicted of murder, then research the homes and go back to who those home owners was and connect it to the slum lords and the lead lords and go back and make them accessories to the murders that have been committed, as well as when we had our school system who thought medicating our young people was the answer, and the over-medication of our young people, which I believe was a precursor to this opioid epidemic. You look at the generation of young people right now that's struggling with pills. In poor communities, these young people were in schools where parents were made to believe all we can do with your child is give them this pill, have them sit in the seat, look like a zombie, the same way they look right now on the opioids. But we always looking at the victim.
Yes, sir.
Patrick, I also have to go into the miseducation and undereducation of our community. I was listening to the program this morning, LY's program, and he said that he remembers a fight and battle when he was in Annapolis.
Yeah, I heard that.
With Mayor Schaefer at the time, where they were fighting for money and underfunding of the schools. So this is something that's carried on generationally.
Yes.
This ain't just me that was undereducated. It was my parent before that, my grandparent.
But he also mentioned that it was Rollins for Blake's father, who was the one that was against it. This is what we must understand, and what you all must understand. We put these people in office, and we give them all this power, then they go and they work against the people. That's one thing.
Well, we celebrate platforms. We celebrate the arrival and don't to see.
And I don't following what Pastor McKee said. When you look at abandoned housing in every major city in the nation, we understand that is a planned operation. In other words, the housing remains abandoned for 20, 30, 40 years until we get the right, rich, white developer who comes in, redesigns, and the people who were there cannot institutional racism. And it about the lead poisoning and all of that, and the people who own those properties, ownership. But you've got absentee landlords who live in Florida, Mexico. Most of them are white, and we do not have the machinery in city or imprison or seize that property in reality. We can declare eminent domain in many instances, but the reality is that people who are complaining about abandoned housing next to them, next door, elderly senior citizens, many of whom are black, poor homes.
Leo, if you remember, they filed suit against Baltimore City with regards to the lead. So do, and the city has paid up.
They're the one entity inside of those legal battles that is not paid whatever portion they were responsible for.
Not only lead poisoning, but water bills. Same deal.
Yes.
You don't pay up. But the people who are not-for-profit corporations, the richest people, they don't pay at all.
Correct.
They're not being charged. So again, the conspiracy goes on.
Listen, I went to a meeting on with Holmes with Tyrone Boast.
Yeah.
And we're working with him now and trying to help them where he's trying to get the dollar houses back. And he talked about that there are people that are living for just come in.
That's right. It
can't. The great thing about row houses is that you can repair one in the middle of a row house. My whole thing is the aesthetic. The beauty of Baltimore is those row houses. Where is the Historical Society of Maryland? Why aren't they saying, no, you can't tear that down? Tyrone wants the city to give them the money to do the demolition. Then people can come in and get loans to fix them up at a low rate to do this. Mary Pat Clark is behind this, and there are a few other people. So you're absolutely right. But y'all got to remember that once they tear them down, that means they don't intend for us to come back. And the next thing is when you see us sign something that says a green space, know that means there's green space so they can put white faces in it.
Correct.
That's all that is a
nice
reservation of land. That they're
by design.
Doc,
by design.
I see you. Tyrone, I see you. I'm going to go to Rick right now. Rick, welcome to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People. Do you have a question or comment, sir?
Yes, good afternoon. I just have a couple of quick questions for you. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., was he a Democrat or Republican? Because I hear a lot of Republicans claiming that he was one of their own.
Well, he started out as a Republican. His father was a Republican. But when Kennedy, I believe it was Kennedy, got him out of jail, I think that was his conversion, if I'm not mistaken. That's when he decided to become a Democrat.
Republicans don't mention that part then.
Right.
They always claim that Martin Luther King was a Republican.
Well, no,
they never mention that he converted.
Yeah, no, they don't. They don't mention it for obvious reasons.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to know, because they always say Martin Luther King was a Republican. I heard the other day on a right-wing station, Martin Luther King was a Republican.
Yeah, he was until that point. Well, when Kennedy got him out of jail.
Because they are aiding and abetting
and sustaining
the political establishment and the wins of the Republicans, as speaks to our genocide, which is ongoing.
Yes,
systematic, conscious.
Was an old Indian chief that said, "Same bird, just different wings." So that's saying exactly what you're saying.
Can I jump in for just a second? When we're talking about what happened in the United States between whatever and now, I gave a talk earlier in the week to a bunch of senior citizens. You know, I have my millennial partner here, and I wanted to ask them the same kinds of questions that we're asking the callers. And the senior citizens were very instructive in terms, because some of them were older than me. And they gave definite responses in terms of what they thought had gone wrong, how we rolled off the tracks. And I'd like to just tell you what they said.
Quickly.
Drugs, family structure, grandmothers raising grandchildren, prayer in schools, lack of discipline, and mass incarceration. So
I got one more question for you, Pastor, when you finish.
So if you can destroy the family, if you can destroy the black family, or if you can weaken it as much as possible, then that's the result you get. And the fear that I saw in the faces of these elderly folks was palpable. And I think that's part of what we lost between 1964 and now.
Should your religion be more important than your skin color?
I'm a pastor, and I say absolutely no.
Well, I say absolutely no, too. But Rick, go ahead and ask your question, and that's a big problem.
Okay.
That's a big problem.
This is saying This is about Gladys Knight. Do you think she's a sell for singing that white national anthem?
Well, you know, Gladys became a Mormon a few years back. I don't know if many people are aware of that. One of the most racist religions from its origin was the Mormons. And they tried to put her in the choir. They had to do a concert with a choir. Doc, it was the most sterile performance I've ever seen. Gladys Knight couldn't warm them. Well, I almost said the C word, but I won't call them that. Not even her could bring no kind of anointing up in there on them Mormons. That was the most stiff performance I've ever seen. And she was trying her with all of her charm
Gospel
to come
Music
in there
Workshop of
and
America sang with the Mormon Tabernacle Choir back in the 80s.
Yeah, well, I was a member
Wasn't
of
that
that.
Brigham Young?
Yes,
Brigham Young start that? Brigham Young?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And they say that black people are cursed. Having it until what? 2000? Was it
1976 or 75?
Well, remember, decided that we weren't devils.
The Mormons are actively recruiting in this city and other cities right now. They're on bicycles.
Doing that.
And they're ongoing. Mormon, the demonic Mormon.
Do y'all think she should perform? That was the question.
Perform the national anthem?
Yes.
I don't think nobody black should.
I don't.
I was surprised that watching the fight the other night that they had they even had the national anthem there. But I understand it goes back to I think it was Leo who said that it goes back to the seat at the table mentality.
Wait a minute, hold up, y'all. She could do a coup d'etat. What's that verse talking about? The slave gonna be the slave? That's the second or third
second verse.
What if she sung that second verse? Oh my God! Now that would be Gladys. If you listen, y'all know anybody listening? Tell Gladys to sing that second verse, and she won't have to worry about whether we love her.
Is she getting paid?
No,
she's not getting paid.
She's not getting paid.
Some folks said that she should sing the black national anthem.
Lift every voice and sing.
Yeah. But I think what happens, once you get to that place in life where Gladys Snyder and most of those entertainers and even athletes are, it's more about your brand than it is. And we talk. You just asked a very critical question: should your religion supersede your race? I think when you're looking at the black athlete and entertainer, their brand has far superseded their race.
Yes,
and what little they do for tax deductions that we have a tendency to celebrate as though it's big. Kind of, pushes it right on the back burner, the reality that we need to bring them to a reality.
The Patrick Henderson's Meet the People. Do you have a question or comment? Thank you for calling.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. How are you all?
We're well.
All right.
Yes.
Wow, I've been on hold since the beginning of the show.
Thank you. I'm so sorry.
And there's so much on the table. I don't know where to begin.
We'll start with the one that you could deem to be most important.
I don't know. Anyway, no. My pastor yesterday, we had a guest pastor, she said, we need to wake up and stop dreaming on the old I Have a Dream speech. And we do. And when you really think about it, and back in 1968, when I was 5 years old, my mother took me down to Monument Street, and I looked around me and I saw fire and destruction. And when
did you say 68? That was when Dr. King was assassinated, right?
Yes, exactly. August 1968. And I said, man, look, I was scared. I thought the world was coming to an end. And so I was 5 years old now. Now, come up, I'm 57 years old now. And I look back on North Avenue and I say, what do we do all that for? Looking at what we're doing here in America today as black people, as a race of people, we are still dreaming. And I say that because I work in the school system up here. And I look at the condition of our education and the anger we always say our children have in our system. And then I say, well, when you tell the parents about it, which 3 show up for the family teacher conferences, you know that, right? There's really no PTA at the average school.
Right.
And when they come up, then they complain. How, folks, your mentality is, can I say, A-double-S backwards. How can I take you serious as a parent when you come up to a school to drop your child off in your pajamas? How can I take you
But
serious?
that's appearance. Y'all, Doc, I don't care how they get there. They can come in their draws as long as they come. I'm sorry. I think we let little things like that get in. And I hear you, sir, and I understand. I don't care what they come in. And we shouldn't either. My mother didn't like to go to PTA meetings because she didn't have a college degree. And she didn't want to split a verb in the front of those people. So she didn't like to go to the meetings. We find all these reasons why people, and we got to stop doing that.
Do you think that our liberation, as directed by black men or many black men, is through the eyes of the football team? In other words, are we football? Are we football warriors? Yes. And the football is kind of a way in which we feel we're liberated as a consequence.
We live vicariously through the football.
Through football,
yeah.
and that's going to somehow ensure our
He's
survival.
right about that part, that we're living in a dream, but really many of them don't have a dream. Most people just trying to pay.
Said he wanted to know what was all of that. When people say things like that, I look at it specifically and I attach even my background to it. But it was for us to be able to have people positioned to bring about change. The problem is we got people in those seats and it's not important for them. What's important for the people that look like us, that we've put in those seats, is the preservation of themselves, the preservation of their seat and their reputation. And I'm talking primarily about our politicians, but even moreover, some people in the social justice community. Baltimore's social justice community right now, unlike in the 60s, is flooded with people who do not come from the neighborhoods or the situation that they say that they fighting for. To me, that's a major. Do not have the inherent damage to fuel your real passion. And you see many of them, many of their way out of the grassroots social activism is somebody coming and saying, well, I got this job down here I think you'd be great for, in some sort of political position or some sort of thing, and we never see them again on the quote-unquote front lines. We've watched that happen from the uprising all the way up until now with guys. I see them now when I go and we in the same circles. Oh, this where you at now. That's why we haven't seen you.
So but we still man up at football day.
Gentlemen,
at the time when football is played, we become real men.
One with it. Go ahead. Hurry up, Richard.
Okay, let's be real. We're talking about sports. Sports now is nothing more than the modern version of the ancient gladiatorial games, where the elite are now keeping the masses happy, satiated, and misdirected by providing the gladiatorial games.
Amen. I agree with you 100%.
Patrick, it's the third stanza of Star Spangled Banner.
Yeah. Well, y'all that know Gladys, send Gladys that third stanza and tell her to sing that verse on it. Tyrone, welcome to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People. Do you have a question or comment?
I would like to compliment. First of all, I'd like to compliment everybody on the commentaries, the callers, actually, too. What he just said about the what they called it was the bread and circuses. Every Roman citizen had the right to have free ration bread, and the circuses, which wasn't a circus like we think of a circus. It was where gladiators fought and where chariot races were done at the Colosseum. You could go there for free as a Roman citizen, but one of the main reasons was for you to be distracted while the patricians would steal from the treasury.
Yes,
that's right.
Paying attention to what was really important. You were paying attention to that stupid gladiatorial contest or whatever. It's violent, but
competition.
But somebody gets fed to a lion, a Christian gets fed to a lion or something. Yeah, that was entertainment back then because they didn't have cable. But at any rate, as far as Dr. King's struggle, the young man there was very astute. What he's saying is very true. Y'all, the top, not necessarily the lower thirds, because the child poverty rate, if you do any research, is actually higher than it was when Dr. King died. Today, a lot of people don't understand that. So we make gains as far as our elites, our black elites are able to do things that God did. Once they get there, they don't seem to want to look back and give somebody a hand up.
Yes.
We worry so much about offending white people when we get to these situations. Now, if most black people even understand it when an Italian politician gets into office and looks out for Italians in the process of looking out for everybody else. They understand when a Jewish politician looks out for the Jewish people in the process of looking out for everybody else. They get that. And I would respect them if they didn't do that. What I have a problem with is when black people...
Barack Obama.
Yeah, exactly. And people would give him a pass. They would say stuff like,
every time.
Oh, he can't help black people. White people might get offended.
Oh, he's got to be the president for everybody.
Right.
What the hell with that? So that was a wasted presidency because we spent so much...
Thank you so much.
You.
Get up in the morning. We'll close the gate. Thank you, sir. Brilliant. You're absolutely right.
Does anybody remember the Poor People's Campaign?
Yeah.
Okay. What I'm saying is he's right, the caller. But all I'm saying is we've got to build on the fact that some of our leaders have attempted to address this. We've got to address it more in terms of this class distinction, as I heard you speak of earlier. We got to work with poor folk who are odious to some of us because we think we've arrived.
Yes, really, but I want you to know something.
But we've got to work with trying to bring them.
When I just spoke, listen, we got to get to their kids. If you want to change their parents, you got to get to the kids. The kids will lead them. The kids will bring them to the PTA meetings. They will. Let them get in trouble. Okay? Let them do it. Let them get in trouble. Or let them be on a style show. Or let them be on a show. Let them do it. And you will see the parents show up. Doc Cheatham, I'm sorry, I'll come back to you. I stuck my finger in the wrong hole. Ramel, welcome to Patrick Henderson. The people, you have a question or comment?
Oh, yes, sir. First of all, I'd like to say hello to all of y'all.
Thank you, Ramel.
Good afternoon. How you doing?
What I wanted to say is this. Mr. Henderson, you made an excellent point. And I've been saying this for a while, and I'm going to keep saying it. The problem with us is we are at war. And the weapons used against us are chemical, biological, psychological, economical, physical, and especially spiritual. You know, that's what's going on with us right now, as I see it. And until we face it and deal with it, we're going to stay in this condition.
I agree with you, but you know what? I'm going to still say it every time, y'all. The hope is in the children, because some of us are not going to see it. Some of us won't live to see it, but it's in the children. That's right.
You're 1,000% correct on that.
Yeah, all right. Thank you so much, sir, for your commentary. You're listening to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People. We can hear that in the phones. Do we need to go? It's just 28 afterwards. We do? Yeah. We can go now? We'll be right back.
Grab you by the hand.
WOLB Baltimore and WERQ FM HD2 HD3 Baltimore, brought to you by Live Casino and Hotel.
We're here at the racetrack to demonstrate speed. Wouldn't it be nice if your taxes could be handled this fast? Well, they can. You just have to know who to talk to.
Oh yeah, it's that time again. Tax time. Get your money now by going to Office Tax located on 2136 Harford Road or 1809 Pennsylvania Ave. Don't worry about the government shutdown. Come get your cash advance now. We won't let them hold up your tax refund. Office Tax specializes in getting your taxes done right and getting your refund fast. Call or come on by today. Call Office Tax right now at 443-863-6999. That's 443-863-6999. Or go to www.officetax-baltimore.com. That's www.officetax-baltimore.com.
Did you miss breakfast with the Larry Young Morning Show? We got you. Have lunch with Labor every Tuesday, 12 until 1 o'clock on WOLB 1010 AM. Cheryl and David and you and labor issues that matter.
Lunch with Labor every Tuesday, 12 to 1 p.m. Labor issues that affect and matter to you. Tune in every Tuesday, 12 to 1 p.m. on WOLB.
Did you know that over 90% of male enhancement pills are virtually the same thing that's redone over and over again? Why settle for the same old product when you can get something that really works? Men, you need to try Noxitril, the explosive male enhancement formula that will unlock your performance in the bedroom to a level you could only dream of. Try to imagine Viagra on steroids. Call now for our special free bottle offer today.
Call 800-250-3541. 800-250-3541. That's 800-250-3541.
The new 1010 WOLB with talk in the day and soul at night.
I come here tonight and plead with you. Believe in yourself and believe that you're somebody. As I said to the group last night, nobody else can do this for us. No document can do this for us. No Lincolnian Emancipation Proclamation can do this for us. No Hendersonian or Johnsonian Civil Rights Bill can do this for us. If the Negro is to be free, he must move down into the inner resources of his own soul and sign with a pen and ink of self-assertive manhood his own Emancipation Proclamation. Don't let anybody take your manhood. Be proud of our heritage. As somebody said earlier tonight, we don't have anything to be ashamed of. Somebody told a lie one day. They couched it in language. They made everything black, ugly, and evil. Look in your dictionary and see the synonyms of the word black. There's always something degrading and low and sinister. Look at the word white. It's always something pure, high, and clean. But I want to get the language right tonight. I want to get the language so right that everybody here will cry out, yes, I'm black, I'm proud of it, I'm black and beautiful.
Yes, 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 Dr. King. Bless your heart, man. I tell you, speak to us from the grave. You're to our weary souls. To our weary souls, but we are not ashamed. We know we are learning who we are, but God help us, and God help everybody else when we find out who we are. Then I tell you, something's going to start to change it. Doc Cheatham, bless your heart. You're not with us today, but y'all know this is another one of my favorite men in the world. Doc Cheatham, here today. We're going to go to my glass, the glasses, y'all. Doc Cheatham, are you there? I'm sorry.
I didn't get Fred. Radio show today, definitely at least one gentleman who called earlier. Dr. King, I died in 68. He died April 3rd that year. Mm-hmm. The one thing I see different from 1964 and where we are now is that we have now a social vocalism as opposed to social activism.
Say it again.
That is reflected in looking at voting. We voted at a higher percentage in 64. Of course, King's death was just before the election that year, but since that election, other than the Obama election, we have not voted to that higher percentage since. Mm-hmm. And you definitely don't want to look at the presidential election years because we have done awful. We now have from the baby boomers dropping the ball to the millennia talking loud but saying nothing. And I say that when you look at how many of the organizations were active, you had CORE, you had SNCC, you had SCLC, you had the NAACP, you had the Black Panther Party. You are hard-pressed today to find our generations, be it the millennial or those even younger, that belong to any organization. And let's not start with the church. I know some folks had disagreement with Kings. Most of the ministers here in Baltimore did not belong to the SCLC. I only know of two living today that were members here in Baltimore City. It had to be Marcus Wood and A.C.D. Vaughn.
Yes.
Most of the ministers were not supportive of King in his last days. Most of the speeches you have heard are from 1963 and before. You don't hear many of King's speeches 1963 and on. The last 5 years, you don't hear many of those speeches. We got to be very careful with folks who basically talk loud but say nothing. And I will close with this. A part of the message I gave to Coppin last week told them that I counted 12 churches from North Avenue and Bloomingdale to North in Pennsylvania. There were 12 churches. And my challenge to them was, have the ministers and their congregation walk 3 blocks in any direction outside of their church and see if the neighbors know who they are. And what I submit to you today, the overwhelming majority, much, much different than the activism of King and his people. We now have vocalism because the residents don't even know who the ministers are. And I take 99% of the ministers, walk 3 blocks outside of your church in any direction. Do you really know the people's, the neighborhood that you serve?
Great idea, but it ain't going to happen. Thank you, Doc.
That is profound, Doc, because churches played a big role back in the day, but now we have arrived. So churches are the place for sort of bourgeois gatherings. But as far as I could walk to church. And when I walked to church when I was growing up, I went through my community. And we had NAACP drives, and we had all kinds of drives for social activism. But that place doesn't exist in the Baltimore community anymore.
No.
So the churches are being used to divide and conquer in many instances.
Well,
today.
the churches are being used to just be buildings there. They're not doing anything, really.
They're not engaged in the social reform church of Dr. King.
No, it sends a lot of subliminal messages. As a young pastor, one of the things that I shared with some of my predecessors was that, if you look at our entrance and exit, into the church, you see people dressed profoundly in their Sunday's best, as we called it. And if I happen to be a person in that community sitting on my steps, the first detractor is, if I can't dress like that, I can't come.
And the ushers will stop you at the door sometimes. Come on.
Because that's the required attire. That may not be what the message we intend to send, but that's the message that we send.
It's the tradition.
And the tradition,
we don't want you to come as you are.
Yes and no, we don't. Ahmed, welcome to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People. Are you there, Ahmed?
Yes, I am. I'd like to say good afternoon to the community, and I just wanted to say just a couple of things real quick. When Martin Luther King was in prison and decided to change his political affiliation to Democrat, I think it was around the same time that they was going to try Martin Luther King, convict him, and put him on a chain gang.
Come on.
Now, this is what I really wanted to say. Back in the day, my parents and my friends' parents, they did not allow us to go on a boycott.
Come on. Mine either. Come on.
Because if you got your head busted and you went home and your head was busted in one spot, your family would demand that you go back out that street and they'd come with you to see if that person had 2 knots on their head. So they did not allow us to do that. And I'll never forget the time when I did what I wasn't supposed to do. I went up to J.J. Brill's and Tommy Tucker's on Pennsylvania Avenue at Lawrence. And they was boycotting up there on Pennsylvania Avenue because black folks couldn't eat at the counter. Thank you for their time.
Thank you, and yeah, man, I'm telling you, I live that. I live that in Dallas, Texas. My mother wouldn't even let us go see Dr. King, but the reason she wouldn't, because she was a sharecropper's daughter, and she had seen the Ku Klux Klan ride down on their horses in the middle of the night with their sheets on and burning a cross. They put terror into them. They lynched them. They did everything. So we have to understand they were not doing it because they were simply trying to keep us from it. They were afraid of the repercussions for their children.
And
we're still afraid of the repercussions. Some of us.
We become masters of our own division and our own separatism because, even when I listen to Doc, and Doc is one of my favorite people, one of the things that I've been calling for, I talked to Al Hathaway and a few other people, we need an intergenerational movement. The young people are doing what they know and working with what they have. And it's greatly vilified by people from the previous generations. And it's not to take anything away from what Doc said, because I completely understand what he says. We got social voice, not social action. But we need those that are the product of social action to come into work together, who are the masters of social voice. How much more, and this is what I challenge some of my older people to, how much more effective would Dr. King and his message and movement be if he had social media? How much more effective would it be if he had some of the devices that we have now to be able to generation you to look at not and what separates us, but to be able to look. And I know it's going to take a lot, because some of the young people feel like they
want to tell just you need to learn something. Shut up and listen. And the young people are going to know you need to learn something, because according to you, you are the reasons why we're here now. And so I agree with you 100%.
As a young man, it's been a great struggle for me throughout my life, because I still feel like in my 40s I need mentoring. Yes, I'm a brand
and seek up counsel.
All of those kind. But it's been people, and I won't call names. The only one in Baltimore City that's ever accepted my invitation was Errol Seager before he went on home to be with the Lord, and he got with me and he told me was there, what was right, what was wrong. It's just difficult because they'll come and they'll criticize what we're not, but won't take the time and interest to sit down, even with those of us that are interested.
Yes,
I done reached out and cried out, I want a mentor. I want somebody that can help me.
Right.
To understand this power that I have.
Rich, come quickly. Richard?
Okay, you said pretty much what I was going to say, Patrick. Both sides are equally wrong. My generation don't listen to the millennials, and the millennials have a tendency to disrespect the people from my generation.
They're only returning what they're being given, and that's what we do, is start doing it to them when they're children. I'm going to keep saying this. If you think that child is your property, and you talk to that child like it's a piece of property, treat them like I have a friend, every time I call his house, I hear him cursing his kids. I hear him cursing his wife. I say, don't you reserve cursing for people you don't like? How you cursing your wife? How you cursing your child? Where does this come from? We're going to keep going here, because I tell you, the time is slipping away. 410-481-1010, 410-481. Try, please don't hold it against me. Bye. Okay.
I'm doing well. Happy Martin Luther King Day to y'all. I just want to bring these few things to y'all attention. Y'all are so on when y'all speaking about lead paint poisoning. My question will be to the city leadership: why isn't the kids tested before they go to elementary school?
Come on.
And another thing that we in Sandtown have been worrying about, it seems strange to me that they tearing down half of Gilmore Homes. Eventually they're going to tear all of Gilmore Homes down. Gilmore Elementary is being closed. All of the bus rights through Sandtown was somehow diverted. Can you see what I'm getting at?
Yes.
Then if you go up, let me just put it out there clearly so that everybody knows. Now, the majority of the kids that protested, riot, whatever you want to call it, civil disobedience, came from the 21217 zip code, and look what's been going on in 21217. Another thing, if you go straight up Park Heights, you will see that there's been a mass demolition of houses being knocked down. Getting back to the lead paint poisoning, there had been no containment, because how can you contain anything when you're tearing it down and the poison going into the air?
Cool. Yeah. Don't get me started.
Another thing you must understand, Michael Braisman, the city chief of housing, is the one that's given the authority for all these houses to be torn down in Park Heights. Think about Upper Park Heights. You connect the lower Park Heights to the upper. When you hospital, who's going to be one of the major investments in the new. Who's going to be? And I'm going to get off here real quick. HABC, the Baltimore City Housing Authority, there's still mess going on. Like I tried to tell people a month ago, do you know they fired the union president, Anthony Coates, because of a hacked email that they say he hacked in the system when the email was sent to him? This is shameful. We need for this mayor to stop being so cozy to her female friends that she appointed her female friends that out in Baltimore City for the housing to bring white folks in. Everybody on the scoff at it. We have the worst representation in black politicians in the 2121 zip code in history. Thank you very much, and I'll listen.
Bubby, I think one thing that the family, I've been arguing this for a while, that the family doesn't understand. They do test some of the children as far as lead is concerned, but the problem is the lead is going into the bone marrow. The lead is going into the circular system of the body. And the particular test that we test for doesn't necessarily detect those levels, and unless they go into the bone marrow, they'll never realize that a lot of these children have been poisoned, and it's into the DNA of these children.
Yes, from their families.
What's up, Lucky? We've had a historical issue in Baltimore. When I was around the age of 13 years old,
Lucky.
13 to 15 or so like that, I was had a godfather, a man by the name of Bobby Cheeks. And it really didn't dawn on me as I become active in the community how much of him was in me. And Bobby Cheeks was this guy that would go, and if he had a homeless family, he would find a city house, tear the boards off, move his family in, and dare the city to move them out. Wow. Literally. But the problem was he would do all of this work. He had an organization here called the Welfare Rights Organization. But when he would put his name on the ballot to move from the community activist, very much educated, very well educated man, former NFL football player and all that. But when he put his name on the ballot to get elected, nobody would vote for him. I remember his city council bid was the same time when we got then Sheila Dixon Smith, Lawrence Bell, and what was then the new regime of council people that had all kind of came into council at the same time. He ran during that time. And this was after pulling boards off of houses and fighting for the people. Nobody would go vote for him.
Wasn't he friends with Walter Lively?
Yes,
also?
he was.
Yeah, I
yes, and he run with Irvin Conway.
Why do you think that was? Why wouldn't people vote? He didn't have the money to advertise. They didn't know he was running. There had to have been some reason. They certainly knew he was.
I still to this day don't understand, because we just seen the same thing. The new council people that we got weren't the council people we should have got.
But he didn't have.
Voted in.
But Bobby Cheeks did not have the approval of the white establishment.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, that's why they didn't.
And he was
support
very vocal.
And
he was very vocal. And one of the great activists in this city.
There was no social media.
Fred, I'm going to go to you. You've been holding the longest. You have a question or comment?
How you doing, Patrick?
Well, how are you, sir?
I'm beginning to feel like a stepchild.
Oh, what stepchild? Well, you said you voted for Trump. What is lower than a stepchild?
Come on, child. Tell us something, child.
Go ahead. What do you have to say to us today, Fred?
See, I listen about who you voted for, though.
Yeah, you can. I'm not ashamed.
Well, we don't want to have that debate again.
No, we don't. So what did you call for?
Well, I called because I love hearing us go back and forth about what we need to do, how we need to turn this ship around. First of all, we need to figure out how to give a mass apology to our community. I'm talking about my generation and the very next generation behind us.
Go ahead and do it.
I've done it. I do it all the time. I tell it all the time. It's my fault that this place is like this. People in my generation, when we had control of this city. You don't remember this, Patrick. We had control of this city one time. We had the city council. We had the mayor's seat. We had the state attorney's office. We had the city council too. We had all of those.
We're like now.
Yeah, the late great Aaron Wilkes used to tell us the stories about that.
And here comes my generation. We don't want Dew to be our mayor. This man went through all kinds of hurdles to get us to where we were in this city. And the next generation, my generation, Kurt Smoke, we want a Rose Scholar. You see what happened when he come up with the Sears Reed. During his watch, it turned into the city that bleeds. During his watch.
He was bleeding way for then.
I live here, Patrick.
Yeah.
I grew up in this city.
But there's always been a shadow government.
Absolutely.
It hasn't changed. These black folks who hold titles
That's right.
work at the behest of the rich white establishment, and that hasn't changed to this day. So how much real power do we really have?
When we talk about, because I'm younger and I work with 18 to 24-year-olds, and we talk a lot about the apathy at the polls, but we don't really talk about why. The reality of it is, the one thing that the millennials have right is no hope in politics for change.
Right.
You know, politics has to be a tool that we can control before we'll believe in it for any possibility of change. And we don't have any control whatsoever over politics.
Well, I tell you, hold on for a minute. The reason people don't vote is because they're sick and tired of electing these N-words. Yeah, I said it. These N-words.
Negroes.
Once they get there, they don't do anything.
Absolutely.
Apathy. Nothing's going to change, and that is the problem.
By design.
One more thing, Fred. Wait, hold on. Let me just. I got one question. I'm gonna get right back to you, Fred. Do you own property?
Yes, I do, in 3 states.
In 3 states. Wow. Do you know what the new tax law is saying?
Tell me what?
The new tax laws that your president just put in place.
I read some of them. Yeah.
So you know that you can't write over $10,000 for each property now, right? That includes state, federal, local taxes. You know that, right?
Well, the problem I have in the South is just rural property. It's like
your taxes off.
You're going to pay taxes wherever you are.
Yeah, but come on, the rich people are not paying the taxes, so why are we having to pay them? And they're limiting what we can pay. If you got paying $30,000 on a mortgage, and you can only write off $10,000 of that, is that fair to the people?
Patrick, let me say this to you. Sometimes we have to figure out what fights we really need to fight.
Yeah, right. You just constantly seem on the wrong side of the right side. There you go.
Game player.
Evade. Sandra, welcome to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People. Do you have a question or comment, sweetheart?
Hi, thank you. Yes, I have a comment. I'm so very grateful for this forum. I say thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Excuse me, for serving our community in this capacity. You have a really illustrious panel of beautiful black men. It's so encouraging. So I say thank you.
You're very welcome.
I would like to suggest a strategy that the people could implement. We're talking about the government shutdown. You have to hit them where they are, what they understand, and where they will feel it. And so and my sisters and I were in prayer a few days ago about this, and our discussion went to, well, look, what if the people could just come together in a show of solidarity and everybody implement a no purchase Friday? So for example, if they don't straighten this thing out by Thursday of this week, Friday, nobody buys nothing. Just a day like that would hit them in the economy. When you talk about the money, that's where they feel it. We're just consumers. We're consuming everything.
Yes, ma'am.
I agree. Could we unite and go one day without making a purchase?
Well, I tell you what. Dr. King said that, but I've been studying him this week, and the one way that he said that we could change all this is through legislation. So what if we all decided we was going down to Annapolis a couple of days doing this thing, and they can see us down there saying you need more potent, working with the legislature, marching on a bunch of people that's just going to end up on the news.
Ma'am, let me respond to you just for a moment, and that is to say it's a great idea, but I don't know of any preacher or civil rights leader or black power leader who's going to support that vocally at this point in time. I'm hearing other ideas about boycotts that ought to work.
Yes,
every one of them. You hear them on the radio and you see them on television, whether it's Urban League or really do this, be done, but no one wants to stick their neck out as such.
And that's because these are the individuals that are in office not serving the people.
Yes.
And so another suggestion that I heard on another show was that if all the TSA workers would just come together and say, one day, until you straighten this thing out, just one day out
Shut
of
it
the
down.
year, we are not going to work.
Right on.
Well,
Now
you're talking about some power there.
You've already seen that start to happen. They've had 10% absentee rate at some TSA stations.
Closing
down terminals. 10% is nowhere near enough.
Right, but it closed down a terminal.
Yeah. Could say, look, we're going to come in solidarity. None of us are showing up today. That would put a clink in that chain.
Yes, they would. Thank you.
I think the problem is with the boycotters. A lot of these organizations, when it comes to their banquets, when it comes to their conventions, unfortunately, they're bought and sold. Several times.
They have no intention of boycotting anything.
Raheem, hold on for a minute. I'm trying to get all the calls in. Hold on, Richard. Raheem, welcome to Patrick Henderson's Meet the People. You have a question or comment? You got exactly 30 seconds. Sorry.
Yes, sir. It won't take long, sir. Peace be with you and your pal.
Thank you.
I'd like to address my comment to the young millennial on the
Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Constitutional fold and implement the policies of freedom put in motion by President Abraham Lincoln. Then we can have control. We need to get...
Go ahead.
I think he's breaking up. He's breaking up.
Okay, you're
breaking up.
Abraham Lincoln, God bless your heart.
I don't know why you would want to talk to me about, I guess, the Emancipation Proclamation or anything that's happened in any recent stroke of government's pen. I work in a place where black people are living like they live in a third world country. You go and you try to talk to those that I serve about the dream. They gonna tell you about the nightmare of losing of a mother losing two of her sons, or one son losing his two older brothers to murder in Baltimore. So I'm not at the place where I'm really want to discuss historical legislation and things of that nature, because I got to figure out how to keep him from getting killed now.
How should we live now?
Over the last 2 years.
Yes, sir.
This coming Wednesday, I'll be going to the funeral of the 19th young black man that I've lost to murder that has come through the doors of the Youth Opportunity Center, and we've attempted to assist. So I said again, my perspective is jaded.
Yes, man.
It's very jaded. I tell people all the time, I'm damaged goods. So some of those conversations I ain't even trying to entertain.
He that relates the non-experience is a propagandist. He that relates the experience is a prophet. You're speaking to the power that is. Come on, quickly. You have a question or comment, sir?
Yes, real quick. Boycott chicken and see what happens.
All the chicken.
Yeah, it started with hip hop chicken. They don't have no black folks up in there. Thank you, sir. That was a quick one.
I get what he's saying. Don't purchase chicken. I guess he's saying that as well as buying.
Well, the chicken ain't the chicken's fault.
Chicken ain't nothing but a bird.
Yeah, that's all it is. And these preachers say,
you remember that song?
Chickens have died, and
y'all remember those magic buses we had when the mayor wanted to send the kids down to D.C. to be where the buses to go to Annapolis?
Ooh, see, you just stop preaching and going to bed.
They don't want to send any buses to Annapolis.
The disenfranchised people they can't miss a day of work. They don't have transportation. Everything affecting Baltimore is happening in Annapolis. Where the buses?
Yes, Dwight, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I just want to be real quick. Got a good points from your show this morning.
Thank you.
And my uncle passed. He's an educator in this town, Mac B. Simpson Jr. I don't know whether you know him or not. His funeral, his viewing will be Wednesday at St. John's Anglican Church from 5 to 8, and the funeral will be at Union Bethel at 7 p.m.
Thank you, sir. Leo, you have an announcement? Come quickly.
Tonight, Roots of Scouting, 3301 Windsor Avenue, the Church of St. Cecilia. Come out to our meeting in commemoration of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King.
You have any announcements?
7 p.m. tonight.
Marvin, you good?
No.
James C.?
Just as the clouds will inevitably roll away, there will be sunshine again, and the history of our struggle will continue to be revealed in the bright light of a new day. Racism will not win. We must continue to resist.
Yes, Jason.
Martin would have liked that.
Yes, he would have. Are you good?
Just try to make this day a day of service for Dr. King.
Love
and
somebody,
WWKD is what I've been preaching today. What would King do?
What would King do? I have a special procedure tomorrow, so y'all pray for me, and that the Lord just make sure I'm good. All right. next Sunday at 3:30.
Someday, sickness.
WOLB Baltimore and WERQ FM HD2 HD3 Baltimore. Brought to you by Live Casino and Hotel.
This is Reality Radio.
Each January, we celebrate the birthday and legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And while celebrating Dr. King's life is appropriate, it is even more appropriate and necessary that we give action to his words and that we breathe renewed life into his mission. While some aspects of Dr. King's dream have been realized, the reality is that Dr. King knew that his dream would not be truly fulfilled until economic disparity, justice, reform abolished. The heart of our nation was challenged to address the hatred, bigotry, and oppression that has fueled so much of what we face today. So, as we 2019 reality. What's your reality?
One of those 7-point city. I'll be sitting for Reverend Sharp, who is holding a special MLK Day tribute to the life and legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. at Action Network. You can participate in our conversation by giving us a call at 877-532-5797, 877-532-5797. Let me bring you up to date as to what's going on. Earlier today in Washington, D.C., the National Action Network held their annual Martin Luther King Day breakfast, hosted by Reverend Al Sharpton and the National Action Network and D.C. speakers. Reverend Sharpton was there, the Honorable Muriel Bowser, Martin Luther King III, Hill Harper honorees, concluded the Honorable Joe Biden, Sherilyn Eiffel, and Everett Kelly and Nate Tinbite. Hope I said that right. Nate Tinbite. They were honorees. And at this moment, as we speak right now, Reverend Sharpton and the National Action Network are holding their annual King Day in New York City celebration at the National Action Network headquarters up in Harlem on 145th and Lenox Avenue to celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But with Reverend Sharpton, of course, elected officials are going to be there, clergy and community leaders. Among those elected officials will be Kirsten Gillibrand, who announced that she is running for president in 2020. She did that last week on CBS television on the Late Show with Stephen Colbert. And if you were around this morning and you got up in the morning, you got to watch Good Morning America, California Senator Kamala Harris announced that she is running for the Democratic nomination for president in 2020. She did that live this morning around 7:30 in the morning Eastern Time. It's going to be a huge race. I'm telling you that much right now. She said she was pleased and proud to make the announcement on MLK. Spent 20 years as a prosecutor. You name it, she has done it. She's California's junior senator. He said American people want to this is what she said. I'm going to quote her exactly on this because I think she made some great points in this. American people want a fighter, and I will fight like heck for them. And she also said that workers don't want a wall, they want a paycheck. Bravo, sister, bravo on that. So Kamala Harris is now in the race. And it's not over. A lot of announcements are going to be made during the course of the coming months. So get ready for that. By the way, after we take our break, we'll be joined by Dr. Earl Ofori Hutchinson, who's co-hosting with us for 1 hour. And we'll talk about the sister, Kamala Harris, because he knows her very well, knows all about her. Everybody's talking about it. Big news, big news, big news. That was this morning's breaking news. And, of course, everybody's off because of the MLK Day today. It's a national holiday, and you can expect the members of Congress to go back to work tomorrow. And interesting thing is that you have this Trump border wall nonsense. Will the Democrats give the baby his bottle or continue to spank that booty? Right now, they're spanking that booty. They're not going to give him anything. We'll see how far that goes. But that's one of the dramas that will continue. And by Friday, it'll be the second week, a second paycheck that the 800,000 federal employees will not get because of this Trump border wall nonsense. Oh, man. This is some of the King Day. You know, this is, 2019. And people seem to be falling asleep. Unbelievable. And so we'll be talking about those issues. We'll also give you an update on the situation in Chicago. We'll talk a little about Gladys Knight and singing the national anthem. Of course, as you know by now, unless you're on another planet, Super Bowl 53 is all set. And, of course, there's going to be an interesting situation on that coming up as well. We got all sorts of things to discuss, and we hope to get your thoughts and comments on what is going on today. As a matter of fact, we can slip in a phone call right now if you want to. Our producer said, yeah, go ahead, slide one in. Let's go to line one, talk to Pam in Chicago, listening to us on WVON. And she wants to talk about the McDonald case.
Yes, and I'll...
Yes.
I'm sorry, and also, I just think today, I think it's good for us to say Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Day. And I think the doctor speaks to his scholarship and his academic achievements. The Reverend speaks to his love as well as his life's work. And I just think, and I know that it's big to say MLK, but it's nice to hear his complete title and name. And I think we should use that, particularly on this day. That's just my opinion.
Well, Sister, I already did that several times.
No, I'm saying our news outlets here and others. I wasn't referring to you. I should have been specific about that. It's what I'm hearing on the news outlet and some other references to him. So that's my concern. But then also looking at here in Chicago, we're coming off the Van Dyke verdict, as well as the other officers who were let go on conspiracy. And now we're looking at the whole, just the corruption within our whole justice system and also within the police department. But also I want to know, we need to look